Tears of the Kingdom greatly improved on Breath of the Wild's most controversial feature, the weapon durability system, and in this video we're going to take a look at how they did that and see what we can learn from it as game designers. Breath of the Wild delivered a very powerful exploration game, but some people just couldn't get into it. Around the time it came out, the weapon durability system was one of the main reasons cited by most of its detractors. So why did they add it in the first place? Well, Breath of the Wild indexed heavily on exploration, and the durability system had some key advantages that complemented that well. Namely, it encouraged you to explore more since you often had to replenish your armament. That wasn't all it did though, as it also encouraged you to try different weapons, it increased your strategy some since you had to think about what weapons to use for which engagement, and made encounters just a little bit more difficult. It also functioned as a crutch for the reward system since finding a weapon always seemed to have some value. But like most things in game design, it has some negative side effects. There's a lot of things we can nitpick at here, like it interrupting gameplay, requiring you to interact more with the UI, or how it disincentivizes you from using good weapons because you were saving them for another fight. In truth, I just want to focus on two major issues here: encounters and agency. The durability system changed the way you interact with encounters in the world. If you're running around with an inventory full of strong weapons and you find a band of enemies to fight, those enemies are not always worth a durability hit. The system ends up disincentivizing you from engaging with the game. Now the second and probably the more important issue here is that it takes away from your agency as a player. Now agency is an important topic in game design. It represents your ability as a player to make the decision that you want to make and take the action that you think is best. The durability system takes away from your agency as a player since it forces things upon you. No matter how skilled you are as a fighter, your weapons are going to break, which is then going to force you to spend some time seeking out replacements for those weapons, whether you wanted to or not. For most games, with some exceptions mind you, as a designer you generally want to afford the player as much agency as possible. Why? Well, that's what makes this form of entertainment unique. You sit down and you watch a show, you read and listen to books, but games let you take action. Okay, so now that we understand the core issue with the weapon durability system, how did Tears of the Kingdom make it better? The developers over at Nintendo could have done many things. They could have just removed the system entirely, tweaked it somewhat, or, more interestingly, they could introduce something else that complements this system and ends up making the game better with it. And that's exactly what they did here. They introduced their flagship feature, the fuse system, which lets you attach items onto your weapons to make them more powerful. What you choose to fuse results in different outcomes. It lets you make some pretty weird weapons, but also some very powerful ones. They really leaned into the system, so much so that at the start of the game they mentioned that due to whatever is going on in the world, all other weapons have withered away, including Link's Master Sword. Even when you open a chest and find the weapon inside, if you look at it, it's really just a fused weapon comprised of two parts. So, how does this system work and why does it help with our problems? Well, to start, there are two sides to it. Weapons you loot around the world are generally pretty weak by themselves and act more like bases. Different bases have different effects and affect things like the durability of the weapon and what the base damage value is. Then on top of that, you can fuse one item onto your base that affects the weapon. Different components around the world contribute different effects to the weapon when used. It's a lot of fun thinking about what combination of items can result in and makes the weapon system a lot more interesting. So why did this make the durability system better? It's still in the game, isn't it? Well, it is, but it all but negates the two major issues we've outlined earlier. With the introduction of Fuse, the developers at Nintendo also added hundreds of components to the game, including one on every creature, that can be used in the Fuse system. When you kill a bat in Tears of the Kingdom, they drop eyes that then can be fused onto arrows to make the arrows home in on the target. The harder the creature is, the better the component they end up dropping, and you can craft some seriously powerful items using those components. So when you see a pack of weaker enemies in Tears of the Kingdom, aren't you still incentivized to ignore it and save on some durability? Well, you could, but with the addition of these components, you at the very least are guaranteed to walk away with a fistful of components and maybe even some base weapons. So if an encounter ends up costing you a weapon, it usually right then and there makes up for it by giving you more components and bases to use. So that was the first issue solved. What about the issue with agency? Well, they didn't give you more agency in the weapon durability system. It more or less works the same way. But instead, they gave you a ton more agency using this new crafting system that makes up for the lack of agency you felt before. Now there's a really good nugget to take away here. If a part of your game is taking away agency from the player, you don't necessarily have to change that part to add more agency. You could instead shore it up through another system. Now you might be wondering, why didn't they just remove the durability system to begin with? Well, quite honestly, the game would fall apart without it. And I might explain why in a future video, so if you'd like to see that, make sure you subscribe. I love diving into cases like these because we get to see some masterful game design that we can all learn from and maybe feel a little bit inspired by. And I hope you found this video useful, or at least entertaining. Thanks for watching everyone, I appreciate you all and we'll see you again next time.